Hey guys, welcome back to the inn. It is, well, it's the end of 2016, and with that, it's time to actually, well, judge the cards and the decks and the sets that came out this year. So, without further ado, we're presenting the inn awards. We have 5 different categories. 2 are personal opinion, and 3 are a bit more objective, where we're actually considering the meta and everything. I'm going to go over each and every one of them. We're going to be evaluating only the cards and the sets and the deck archetypes that came out this year. So this year only. Nothing before Whispers of the Old Gods or anything that's been out for a while. So without further ado, I think was that a good explanation, Eddie? Or
it was a good explanation. I mean, if anything, we've got annotations that'll just be popping up at the very top. That'll be like, here's this.
I figured that these 5 categories are pretty much the absolute basic. If there are categories, we might add to it or, subtract for it and like change this up in later years. But I think these are the 5 basics. If there's any suggestions for future years, you can always comment down below, and that we may change this up as we go from year to year. But without further ado, the very first category is favorite card. Now, this is not an objective decision, so we're not basing this off of objective criteria. This just happens to be our favorite card for whatever reason. This is the card out of the releases this year that we enjoyed the most and that we just love. And so I'm starting off. My favorite card this year has to be Aya Blackpaw, hands down. There's just something about this card that kind of just snuck up and just grabbed hold of me. I remember that when Mean Streets of Kazakhstan was getting ready to release, I actually thought, like, this is a kind of cool card. I'll probably, include it in a deck. But it wasn't really on my list, Eddie, of absolute favorite must-craft or whatevers. And then we started opening packs, and I started getting worried because I'm like, I kind of want to open it, and I just was dejected. I was surprised how dejected I was that I didn't open it. And so I remember we did the different quests to get the extra packs. And so finally I have all the packs I can get, and I'm opening those final packs, and the very last pack I get her. And it's probably the most excited I've ever been for a legendary. Eddie can remember, I went nuts.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, normally you're rather contained about sort of things like that, and it's just like, hearing you hoop holler and just go woohoo. It's just like, all right, I mean, you're excited. I'm glad for you.
It's just this card. I don't know what it is about it. It just snuck up and it just grabbed a hold of me and just wouldn't let go. And just that feeling of joy I got when I saw it. There's just nothing in Hearthstone, no other legendary, no other card that's really equaled up to this card. I absolutely love this card for that reason. I love just the idea around this card and just everything about this card. So yeah, Aya Blackpaw, definitely my favorite card.
I've had time to sit and think on this, and I've been torn many different ways. I didn't want to cop out and just go with an easy pick, or at least, quote unquote, an obvious pick that I know Bob would probably think I would go with. So it's just like, what do I go with? But after really taking time to sit down and just give everything a once-over in my head, for me, my favorite card has to go to Yogg-Saron, Hope's End. This 10-mana card being a huge game changer when the battle cry hits. And pre-nerf, it was bonkers. After it killed itself, it still had the ability to be able to just do whatever. And now it's just like, alright, if it gets hit with silence or killed or whatnot, it's over. However, it made it a bit more balanced, in my opinion, in that thought, because now it's just like, okay, I'm just dropping Yogg just to have fun. Now I gotta sit and I gotta think about what I'm gonna do. Like, am I really gonna play this on turn 10 just for the lulls of it, or is it, for now, because of how the nerfs hit with it, it's like, okay, I have to use this to control my board and control the board state. But yeah, it's the Yogginator for me.
I actually, and it's funny because I actually remember when the whispers reveals were happening, and we actually talked about this one. I remember how super excited you were about this card, and and you thought I was going to be excited. I'm like going, eh.
Yeah, I figured you would because
It's
I'm
cool.
like Randomonium was gonna love that thing, and you're just like, eh. I'm like, what?
Oh yeah, and then Yogg found a place in Randomonium, and then Yogg didn't want to leave Randomonium, and I swear it's the only card in Hearthstone that has a mind of its own and will punish you if you remove it from decks. Oh my word. I've never seen a card like that.
He has a personality of his own. You put him in a deck, and it's like, okay, cool. Well, the deck's not exactly working out very well, so let me take out Yogg Saron. The deck then bottoms out entirely, and you're just going, ah! So then you put Yogg Saron back in, and it's just like, okay, it works again. Or at least it works.
Yeah, I mean, that happened to me with Randomonium. I removed him for, and put Medivh in there, and the deck just tanked. Over and over and over again. So I'm like, okay, fine. I think I had to remove Nefarian to put Yogg back in. And then the deck won.
I did the same thing with Jade Druid. I put him in there, and, it was doing alright. Took him out, it just bottomed out entirely. Did not want to cooperate and work. Put him back in. Up we go.
Well, the funny part is, it's not just that I won because you think, well, he got Yogg. It's like, no, I think I might have drawn Yogg, but it's like I didn't play Yogg. It's just all of a sudden the losing streak was over. It's just kind of like Yogg's like, I just don't want to do it. I don't necessarily want to win the game for you. I just want to be part of the team.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it was so bonkers with him and his personality.
Oh man, that's the. Maybe there are other Hearthstone cards that have personality, but that is the #1 card I've seen that actually has personality and actually will fight back. It's great. Okay, well the next category, it's the only other personal opinion category as far as this year's awards, but it is the antithesis of the favorite card. It is the least favorite card. It is, again, personal opinion, not based off objective criteria, but what is the card that was released this year that we absolutely hate? It could be for good reasons, it could just be for stupid reasons, but for some reason, we can't stand this card. Eddie, what is your least favorite card?
Again, I go back and forth, because there's a few cards where I'm just like, sitting here, I'm looking at him, going, I hate you, and I just loathe you entirely. But I now have to actually select and pick. And for me, the card that I've come to despise the most is Patches the Pirate. I saw this thing when it first came out. I'm like, okay, cool, we could do something like, Gang Up or Pirate Rogue being a big thing. And now it's Pirate Rogue, Pirate Warrior, Pirate Aggro Shaman, and it's just anytime I have to hear I'm in charge now, when it comes to trying to go up on ladder or at least climb a little bit anywhere, it's just I'm in charge now. Oh my god, I'm getting sick and tired of hearing this battle cry. Please shoot me. But yeah, that's like I just was like, all right, screw it. This is my card that I hate.
Yeah, figured it'd have to be something aggro. Yeah, I know you loathe that type of gameplay style.
It's not really because I know it's something that's healthy for a game. But when the game is over before even turn 5, to where I can at least attempt to get a footholds where at least I can try to actually play the game, then it's just like, okay, it's like, sure, the games are quick and fast, but they get boring as when you're trying to rank up and you keep running into it. Yeah.
Oh, I had the same thing where I kind of was sitting down. I went actually through all the cards that were released this year, trying to figure out what my least favorite was. I actually thought it was going to be something like Runic Egg, because normally my least favorite is basically, there wasn't any like card that just I load based on playing against or anything like that. But basically, I was looking at useless cards I just can't stand because there's no point in them. I really thought it was going to be Runic Egg, and then I came across this card, and as soon as I saw it, Eddie, it was gut-loathing. I absolutely hated it. I'm like, it's this one. It's this one. My least favorite card of the year is Unlicensed Apothecary. I hate that card. I hate everything about that card. It doesn't look pretty. It furthers the whole hurting itself in Warlock, which is okay, but I think this card goes overboard. I see no point of this card. Yeah, maybe you get it out or whatever, but it always seems that this card is going to spell trouble. It's not a good card in any sense of the word. I hate everything about it. And I can't really rationalize it. I just look at it, I just hate it. It's just, why would anyone play this card? Why is this even a thing? Who thought this was a good idea on any sense of the word? And not just that, what? I just hate it. It just goes beyond It goes beyond uselessness to actually being a detriment to the entire to the game, in my opinion. It's just really
Flip table.
I hate this card so much.
Flip table. Flip table.
Probably not what you were expecting, was it?
I'll be honest with you, it wasn't.
What were you?
I figured you were gonna go with like something like Runic Egg, or just something else that you just found absolutely useless, and then it's just that. It's like, alright. Because I remember when we discussed it in the actual breakdown, like, I did a little bit of fighting for it, but it's just like, I just knew you were like, ah!
Well, it's like, even other cards where I was like, and I thought I rallied against him in Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, I've seen them be useful. Like, I've seen instances of Dirty Rap be useful. So I can't really argue against this. But just this card. Just this card. I mean, I can't, the other cards, in a way, redeem themselves in some quality. Or they're not as bad. But this card has no redeeming qualities. And just everything about it, I hate. I hate the demon qualifier. It's like, I hate every single part of it. I hate the entire concept of the entire thought process that had to go into making this card. It's just, there's no.
Just no.
No. Just no. It can die in a fire. No. And it's not even like it's because you got no. No, I don't even play it. I haven't been hurt by it. It's just, I looked at the cards like, I hate it with a passion. And I can't say why. It's just, I looked at it like, Okay, let's move on to the objective category, shall we? These next three categories are, I'm going to say it, are the objective categories. These are not based off of our personal opinions. We've actually put some thought into these, and each of these following categories have to do with what we've seen, how impactful we've seen these certain things be in the meta. And this is, maybe our thoughts and opinions may vary, but this isn't just our gut feeling. We're going to give reasons why we think that. And the first one is Deck of the Year. Now, to be fair, when I'm talking about Deck of the Year, I'm really talking about an archetype, because individual decks can vary with tech choices, but archetypes tend to be, for the most part, either very similar, or the thoughts are similar as far as how they're put together. Just the general archetype. You're going like, I'm going to see this, this, and this, and this. It's the type of decks that you're building. Now, to be fair, when we're talking about the archetype of the deck of the year, this is a deck, or this is an archetype that was influential in the meta, was only possible given this year's releases. So it cannot be an archetype that has been around since the beginning of the game. It cannot be an archetype that was created and defined in last year's meta. It has to be completely created in this year's meta. Now, the only reason an archetype from past metas, or like whether it was last year or an evergreen archetype, can appear for this award would be if the cards and the changes made by the 3 sets this year were so influential and major that it completely changed the way the archetype was ran. So, with that in mind, I'm going to have to give the deck of the year to Mid Shaman. For me, there's no way it can't be Mid-Range Shaman. Mid-Range Shaman, in a way, almost defined the year. In a way, it still is defined the year. It defined the meta. Yes, mainly from Whispers on it defined it, and then Karazhan just pumped it up. The version we know and love, the version we know and hate today, was developed during Karazhan, but it had its origins way back in Whispers, and that deck is actually still around. There have been changes and variations of the deck now. There are actually a couple different variations of Mid Shaman, but it's still alive and well, and it was very much influential this year. Now, I want to also point out that I'm talking about the traditional version of Mid-Range Shaman. Even if it's added some cards, this is the version I'm talking about. I am not talking about the new variations of Shaman that have come out since Main Streets of Gadgetzan. So I am not talking about Jade Shaman. I am not talking about Aggro Shaman. I'm not even talking about the version of Shaman that was before Main Streets called Totem Shaman. I am talking about Mid Shaman. And if you've played Hearthstone, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is the defining archetype of the year. I would love to give it to something else, but really, I don't think you can.
My turn? If anything, we're sticking with a theme here. Because, while you're right, Mid Shaman is one of those decks that has been just so sticky. And for me, when it comes to this deck of the year discussion, I'm giving it to Aggro Shaman. Due to the fact of, after Whispers of the Old Gods, and I'm going to give proof here, from the start of the standard season when Whispers released to now, right before Christmas, or actually, excuse me, on Christmas Day, there have been meta snapshots, 19 of them, and they are displaying across the screen. This deck type was number 1, according to Tempo Storm, for 10 out of 19 weeks, with Shaman overall being 15 out of 19 weeks at the very top, number 1. And if anything, the deck has gotten more and more and more help with everything that just keeps coming along. I mean, you might as well rename Bloody Game instead of just calling it Hearthstone to Shaman Stone, because it is the top deck that has been here the whole time. And it's just like, on one end, I understand people like their decks. They like to have one thing that they find, it works, and then they go with it. But it has been a consistent, and there's even points to where you can see that it's the only deck that sits at tier flippin' 1. And it's just like, I'm really tired of Shaman Stone. I really am. So I'm hoping, above all hope, because I was hoping when it came to Mishra's Gadgetzan, that it would at least try to shape and make it to where Shaman wasn't number one. But I'm gonna have to wait till rotation to see this, hopefully, one flippin' class get kicked out of the top tier. So, if anything, it's Shaman, whether it be aggro or mid, that has been the deck of the year. I'm good.
Okay. So the next category is best set or set of the year. You think best set? I don't know. Let's go best set. Best set. Basically, we had 3 sets released this year. We had Whispers of the Old Gods. We had 1/9 Karazhan, and we had Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. Now, with best set, we were basically saying, we're basically identifying which set was the most influential to the meta. Which set defined the meta the most. Especially from now to especially when it was released. Which one shook up the meta? So, Eddie, what was the set of the year?
For me, I would, and I mean, it does hate me to say it a little bit, but I do give the quote-unquote best set to the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan because of the fact of before it released, it was Shaman, to where even in competitive play, the class had to be banned out, as well as Warrior/Control Warrior. But once Mean Streets hit, you kind of had a break in the whole one class sort of mind, to where now you've got Reno climbing up on top. Control Warrior at this point, due to Jade Druid, has been kind of kicked out to where you can't really play it at all. Freeze Mage is starting to actually phase itself out because of being more attuned to Reno. Now, people are starting to play more and more of that. Priest finally gets a better foothold in the meta than where it started at the beginning of this standard rotation. Now we've got Dragon Priest, we've got Reno Priest, you've got a little bit of control variation. So it's like this kind of shook and made it better overall with Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. So that's my 2 cents.
I was actually, and I think Eddie can attest that I was actually like between 2. And actually, at the end of the day, I have to give it to Whispers of the Old Gods, because one thing I think tips the balance. I think it, in the end, I don't think it was the Whispers of the Old Gods set, but I think it was just where Whispers happened to be placed. And any set I think that would have been placed in this exact same position would have affected the meta in the same way, which is in a major way. That being, Whispers of the Old Gods was the very first expansion of the standard rotation. Basically, we had the format change. Everything we knew before was wiped out, and that had a drastic effect on the meta. Because basically it tossed everything out, and everybody had to rediscover what they were doing. And yes, we've had meta shifts with Karazhan. We've had some major meta shifts, as Eddie was talking about, with Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. But we haven't had a meta upheaval in quite the same way as with what happened in Whispers of the Old Gods, because everybody now had to find a new way to play, because we are not talking about Wild, we are talking about Standard, and Standard only came into effect this year, which meant that that very first expansion had a big job to do in order to establish standard and to justify the decision to include formats. So Whispers not only had to prove standard in a way, but also because that a lot of the old meta was tossed out, people had to kind of figure things out on their own, and that essentially established the meta as we know it today. So, I mean, it wouldn't have mattered whether it was Whispers or another set, but whichever set started out the standard rotation and started out the rotation in general was going to have a massive effect on the meta. And because of that, we saw a lot of archetypes flourish. That was the emergence of the various shaman archetypes. That was the emergence of some of the archetypes that we were seeing. We saw archetypes that were around beforehand were still possible kind of fall off because they couldn't really stand up. We saw the emergence of Malygos Druid, of different combo druids, basically different combo decks that no one really had tried before, and it's just, yeah, Cthulhu decks. The Cthulhu meta really isn't what people thought it was going to be. It really didn't last too long past Whispers, but I don't think that everything that we thought Whispers was, everything that Whispers initially gave us, and the fact that it's not around anymore, I don't think that's a reason to judge the meta created by that set too harshly. Because basically that set is responsible for the dramatic upheaval that Hearthstone encountered. And just for that, I have to give it to Whispers. Otherwise, it'd go to something else. But it's just, Whispers was in part responsible for a dramatic meta upheaval, and is partially responsible for the meta we have today. It's responsible for slowing the game down. Yes, we now have aggro decks that can finish a game by turn 5 or 6, but prior to Whispers of the Old Gods, that was a much bigger problem. Whispers of the Old Gods successfully slowed the meta down. And with each subsequent set, the meta slowed down a little bit more, so we're at the point now where any deck can be played. And again, that would not be possible without Whispers. So I have to give the set of the year to Whispers of the Old Gods.
I wouldn't say that any deck can be played right now. I mean, you've got a year certain, but I get your point.
Yeah, and I hope you understand that basically the format change was the only reason I could give to Whispers. I think if that had not happened, Whispers would have been largely ignored.
Yeah, I could.
But because of that, Whispers, I think gets the award, at least for me.
I get it.
And with that, it's time to end the awards on a high note, because we've talked about decks, we've talked about sets, but now let's talk about the card of the year. This is the brand new card released this. This is the card released this year that defined the meta the most. It was the most meta impactful. And really, when I think back on it, there's only one card that I really feel can be the card of the year, because it impacted the meta the most, and that would be Yogg-Saron. Hands down, Yogg-Saron shaped the meta. It was so impactful. I don't think anybody saw it coming. It was so impactful that Blizzard actually had to come in and nerf it, and even then, it's still impacting the meta. Not as much as before, but I think there's a lot of major decks that are still packing Yogg-Saron for many of the same reasons, and it's still going to be a big part of the tournament scene to come. It was, I think, again, it was a meta-defining card, and I think it is, when we look back on the year of the Kraken, I think it's the card that people will remember the most.
If anything, this is the one thing I know we can at least agree on here at the very end, is that Yogg-Saron is the card of the year because of how just impactful it was as soon as it hit. You had some people who were looking at this card and just going, it's a joke card. I mean, you've got all this problem. It's a bad thing because of all this bad stuff it can do. But really, when you take a look at Yogg and some of the crazy crap it did, pre-nerf, it changed and shaped things. And then you see it now post-nerf. It still does those wild and bonkers things, but nowhere near to the extent that it did before the hit, before the nerf. It's now, instead of just lol, playing Yogg, it's now, I'm gonna look at the board state. Alright, Yogg it up. Or, as Kibler would say, Yogglo, and just go. So, just, this is the card this year that, like, seeing it in play as well as just on a casual and a competitive level, this thing has changed and shaped how this game was played. So, definitely, it's Yogg's year out of the old gods.
Yep, year of the Yogg. Well, I think that about wraps it up for 2016. If you have any suggestions for maybe future categories for next year, just leave a comment. How about you give your opinions and your thoughts just on those categories? Maybe you have a different opinion. Maybe you have something to say about what we said. If anything, we look forward to what Standard has to bring, what the team's going to bring us next year for 2017, and we will see you back then. You guys have a lovely new year. We will see you next year.